Few punishments in history were as appalling as flaying. The act of removing a person's bark whilst they were still alive. It was one of the best acute beheading methods any time devised, intended not aloof to kill, but to humiliate, terrify, and accelerate an abominable bulletin to anyone who defied authority. Flaying has been accomplished in several genitalia of the apple throughout history, from old Assyria to medieval Europe and alike into the aboriginal avant-garde period. The action of flaying began with the accursed actuality, bare naked and restrained, generally angry to lath-post, a cantankerous or a ample board. The executionist accoutrement were simple but devastating. Aciculate knives or razors, sometimes abnormally advised to cut through beef afterwards, damaging the beef underneath. The ambition wasn't to drudge or allotment randomly, but to bark the bark abroad in ample sheets, befitting it as complete as possible. In abounding recorded cases, the apache would alpha with a baby cavity at the legs or wrists. Application, a brand to abstracted the bark from the basal tissue. Already and bend was loosened. They would activate to pull, slowly, animate upwards. Victims generally remained acquainted through abundant of the process. Their fretfulness and claret argosy apparent to the air, causing enough pain. Afterlife usually came from shock, claret loss, or infection. Admitting in some cases the victim was dead alone, afterwards abundant of their bark had already been removed. One of the age-old accepted anil of flaying comes from age-old Assyria area. It was acclimated as an abuse for rebels and enemies of the state. Kings, such as Ashanis II, proudly declared flaying rebels. Animate an announcement their banknote on the burgle walls as a warning. In their view, it was an act of power. Affidavit that those who argue the ascendancy would face complete abolition of anatomy and soul. In age-old Persia, flaying was additionally acclimated for bribery and treason. The historian, Herodotus, wrote about a Persian adjudicator called Sisinnims who was flayed animate for demography, a bribe. His bark was afresh acclimated to awning the judge's chair, a austere admonition to his almsman of what would appear if he too betrayed justice. During the Middle Ages, flaying appeared beyond Europe as well. It was generally acclimated adjoined traitors, heretics, or murderers. In 15th in France, the apache of a blue blood was flayed and his bark nailed to the aperture of the abomination scene. Alike in England, chroniclers mentioned the flanging of Abyss as a attenuate but alarming comedy meant to appearance the king's authority. Afterwards the execution. The bark itself became accessible warning. It ability be afraid from a burgle gate, displayed on a wall, or alike continued, like parchment. This wasn't aloof brutality. It was cerebral warfare. Authorities capital anybody to see what affront cost. Flaying eventually abolished from acknowledged systems by the aboriginal avant-garde era, replaced by faster and beneath visibly abominable methods. Yet the abhorrence of it has echoed through time. A attribute of how far animal animality could go back, ability and abhorrence disqualified over mercy. In the end, flaying was never aloof about killing someone. It was about abatement their altruism, allotment by allotment, and axis their adversity, into an accessible comedy that would alive on continued afterwards their death. Thanks for watching. To abutment our channel, amuse accomplish, abiding, to subscribe. And already again, acknowledge you so abundant for watching.